In this video, I am going to show you how to set up SQL Server 2008 failover clustering on Windows Server 2008. First, let me show you the standalone setup. In the standalone setup, you have the database server. Okay, this is database server. And let's call the machine name, the computer name, as M1. Okay, and you store the database files in a separate disk. And let us say this is your application server. Okay, your application server connects to the database server to get the data. And here are your clients. All these clients connects to the application server. And this application server connects to the database server to get the data. Now, if this server goes down, okay, your application server cannot connect to the database. But in a failover cluster setup, you will have one more database server. Okay, and let us say the machine name is M2. Okay, now in the cluster setup, let us say you cluster these two machines. In the cluster setup, you will give the cluster name, SQL Server cluster name. Let us say VSQL 1. Okay. In the application server, when you are connecting to the database, if it is standalone, you will give the machine name M1. But if it is a cluster server, then you will give the cluster name in the database connection string. Okay. You will give this name in the database connection to connect. Okay, so if this server goes down in the clustered environment, this server will process the database request. Okay, now the database will be available most of the time. That is what is called as high availability. In the cluster setup, these are nodes. Every computer is a node. Okay, and you can add as many nodes as possible. Okay, and in the typical active passive setup that I'm going to show you in the next few minutes, one machine will be up and running, the services, and in the other machine, the services will be stopped. The moment one server, this server fails, this server, the services on this server will start processing the database request. This is the shareable disk in the clusters environment. This disk will be shared by both machines. But in the clustered setup, if one machine goes down, you'll have another machine, another node process the database request. Okay, but what if the disk goes down? If the disk is not responding. Okay, so in that case, you will have the option to go for mirroring or log shipping or whatever it is. Clustering doesn't support the media failures. It supports the hardware failures. In the database connection string, you will specify the cluster name instead of the machine name. So application database connection string doesn't need to be changed. If this mission fails, then this node will start processing the request. The database connection string in the application doesn't need to be modified. When the services fail over to the node 2, from node 1 to node 2, okay, there will be a brief moment of interruption for the application to connect to the database. And all the services on the node 2 will be up and running, start process the request. So whatever the transactions that are happening during the failover, those are gone. So again, that has to be initiated from the application server. But it will be available after a few seconds, depends on the size of the database. If the database is huge, then it takes some time to recover those transactions from the file, the log file. So it will take some time for the node to up and running and make it available for the application server. In the real scenario for the production, you will be doing the Windows Server clustering on the physical hardware. So this will be the physical hardware, and this will be the SAN disk. Okay, but for the demo purposes, I'm going to do the clustering on virtual environment. Whatever the environment, virtual or physical, the clustering setup is same. If you know how to cluster the virtual operating systems, then it's the same way you do it for the two physical computers. In fact, some companies prefer to have virtual cluster setup for their development environment, because not many companies would like to spend thousands of dollars for their clustered development environment. In that case, it would be good to have virtual cluster setup on development or staging environment, so that SQL or DBS can play with it and see how the cluster behaves or performs before implementing in production. Actually, the Windows Server 2008 clustering changed quite a bit from Windows 2003 clustering. For example, support for iSCSI, IPv6 support, and DHCP support, service seats. There are many changes. But for this demo, let me show you the setup that I'm going to do it for the virtual servers. For this demo, this is my setup. This is my laptop. Okay, and I have 4 GB RAM on this machine. Okay, maybe 100 gigabytes of hard disk. I will create 3 virtual machines. I will make this as a domain controller. This will be my VMware workstation virtual machine. I will install Windows Server 2008. Okay, and I will create one more virtual operating system, Windows Server 2008, and this will be my node 1. Okay, I will cluster these 2 machines. I'll create domain controller on this machine. I will join these 2 computers, and I'll cluster these 2 servers. Okay, and I will install SQL Server 2008 on this machine and this machine. Okay, so in this video we will see how to create the virtual operating systems and how to make the server, how to create domain controller, and after that how to join the 2 computers, install SQL Server 2008, failover clustering.